Welcome to the MVP podcast, where we talk about anything NBA. I'm Sam Holcroft, alongside Geigh and Payton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. And don't forget to tune in to our Super Bowl live stream on February 11th on YouTube at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today, we're going to do our 7th edition of our NBA stock market game, and boy, did everything crazy happen. First of all, round of applause for Payton. Second week going positive. Like,
Yes.
oh,
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
and along with that, Gage, you lost money. So we'll go into kind of the regrets. But as always, let me start with the top gainers and top losers. Top gainer this last week, the Memphis Grizzlies, $10.97 a share. Lakers, $10.65. Cavaliers, $7.65. Blazers, $3.95. And the Suns, $3.78. Other teams that gained money were the Bucks, the Bulls, the Nuggets, the Kings, the Jazz, the Pacers, the Hornets, the Knicks, the Clippers, the Spurs, the Hawks, and the Pistons finally gaining money. The top losers, Pelicans lost $8.45 a share, Heat $7.17, Warriors $4.97, Mavericks $4.40, and the Rockets $3.56. Other teams that lost money were the Celtics, the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Nets, the 76ers, the Magic, the Wizards, and the Raptors. In terms of everyone, I gained the most money this last week with $248.15, putting my yearly gains to $1,468.36. Payton had the most this last week, $214.82, bringing his yearly loss to only $553.14. And Gage lost $130.67, but still having a yearly gains of $1,766.53. So, Payton, I want Gage to go first, but I'm actually going to ask you to go first. You made a lot of moves this last week, a lot of sells, a lot of buys, and it finally worked out for you. So I'll let you go first with your teams that you're selling and buying.
Yeah, I felt like this last week when I picked my teams and, whether to buy or sell, I feel like I just had a pretty good knack of, kind of, you know, going through and weeding out the teams that I didn't really care for, and those are the teams that I sold, or maybe I just thought selling a few shares here or there would be a good idea. Um, but yeah, I just feel like it's kind of weird because I feel like I don't really go off a schedule. I've said that before. I don't really go off the team schedule. I kind of just go off how I think their momentum is going, kind of the success or failure of the team late. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it just kind of worked out. But I'm going to start off with my first gainer, the Wolves at 10. I just feel like or I guess what I'm going forward doing in the future. I'm going to go with the Wolves plus 10. I feel like their stock market is kind of reached a low where they're a better team than I feel like what their stock is saying. Obviously, they're still, I think, first or second in the West. I believe they're first. And so I feel like getting in on that low stock. Obviously, their estimated wins are going to go down a little bit based on their stock, and so, or inversely, I suppose. And so, yeah, I feel like it's a good time to grab some Wolf stock, and while it's low, and then it's going to go back up to where it should be. So I wanted to put 10 in there. Pistons 8. To be honest with you, it's not like I'm really big into the Pistons. I really just feel like lately they've been playing well, and their stock price is still pretty low, where I kind of want to get a little bit more into that. And so I feel like it's not really a big risk, and it could be a good reward if they keep staying hot. Obviously, they just beat the Thunder a few nights ago. Good win for them. And honestly, they've played well without Cade. So I'm just kind of, choosing to stick with their Heat lately. The Knicks, lately I've played really well. I put in my stock prices, I believe, on Tuesday, recording as of Friday right now. And obviously the Julius Randle injury does hurt. That happened, I believe, Wednesday. And so, yeah, I mean, that's going to hurt. But I feel like making the trade for OG Anunoby, the team kind of ruling lately, I feel like it was a good idea to grab 5 of their shares. It's not going to hurt me super bad if they end up in a kind of rough stretch, but lately they've been winning a lot of games. Obviously, Jalen Brunson just put up 40 last night after finding out he's an all-star. So I feel like they are a pretty safe bet to at least be consistent with their stock prices. And then I did the Clippers 5. I just feel like the Clippers, night in, night out, are a really hard team to beat. And so I feel like it was a good idea to grab 5 of them. Obviously, right now they're all healthy, so it's kind of the optimal time to grab shares of them if you're going to. Obviously, we're going to have to see if they can stay healthy. But, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George made the All-Star game, so they're going to try to be healthy and play well these next couple weeks. And yeah, I mean, I like what I did there with my buys. With the sells, obviously, I'm kind of offloading some of the Suns here. That's my biggest sell with 10. I would say the biggest thing for me is just the inconsistencies with the Suns, man. And we've kind of talked about it all year, The Suns are one of those teams where they have all the talent, but they just really haven't been able to put it together. Not a big believer in Frank Vogel, but I do like their roster. I'm just not certain enough to want to hold on to their stocks for longer than I already have. And so I'm kind of offloading some of those as well. Pacers 3 and the Celtics 1, just kind of more so some honorable mention sells here. I just need a little bit more money to get back to put into the sells or the buys that I wanted to get. And so it's not that I don't think the Pacers or Celtics are going to keep continuing to be good, but it's such a minute, resource of selling 3 Pacers and 1 Celtics where I feel like I can take that and use it elsewhere with better value.
All right. So we heard from Payton. Now, Gage, what went wrong last week?
I told you I was experimenting. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and check if it's ever worth to buy like those pricier teams. And I thought the 76ers were good. And then Joel Embiid, he started I think his knee started bothering him. I mean, we just got the news that he might have tore his meniscus, so he might just be done. And you can kind of tell that it's been bothering him for a little bit. I think it was a good try, but it's just I'll stick back to my old plan, and it's like trying to find good buys, like good sell, like lowers, instead of like who's going to beat their. Instead of looking for who is going to beat their record, it's more of like who has a low record, that I think they can kind of like just stumble over. So that's kind of like my plan this time around. The idea of like the plus or minus of the scoring is starting to slow down just a bit, so we're gonna start seeing some of these teams like kind of hold solid into their win percentages. So things get a little bit more. You're not gonna try to game the expected win percentage this time around. It's getting closer to the end of the season as we get to All-Star break. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, so a lot of it, personally, when I added these teams, it's just I didn't really know where to start. They're just all teams that piqued my interest, really. So that's why I picked those teams. Who knows what the next plan is, but it's just a group of teams.
Yeah. So, what are the teams that you want to invest in?
The Pacers, the Heat, the Jazz, the Cavs, and the Lakers. With the Pacers being the most, just because I think the Pacers are the most well put together team. So, and then followed by the Heat, and then the Jazz. The Cavs are kind of interesting. But then also the Lakers too. But I think the Lakers can straighten up and stay, keep a relatively like good, recent win percentage. They're a little sporadic, but over 0.472 they should be fine.
Yeah. All right. So normally it's PT making the big moves, but I'm making the big moves this week with all of my sells and my buys. So with my sells, I got rid of 25 Heat. Gage, you're going in on the Heat, but they went 2-7 for me this last week, and really kind of 2-5. really kind of bit me in the butt there because I was going to be my big buy and my gimmies, and instead they did the exact opposite of what I needed them to do. So that was fantastic. I sold my remaining 25 of the Spurs. It was nice while it lasted. They made me some money, but they've started winning more and more games as the weeks go by. So that expected win percentage is going up. I don't like their schedule this upcoming 2 weeks, and asking them to, I think they have to go like 3-7 or maybe 2-7 or 2 out of 7 in order to make me money. I don't believe in it. So I decided to get rid of that. Also, not a huge fan of the Jazz and what they're going to be doing this next few weeks. Although you're going in on the Jazz, so here you can have my 20 shares.
Yeah,
yeah, you're welcome. I just another schedule, like my biggest thing is, like, I do look at the schedules. I'm kind of the opposite of Peyton. I look at those schedules and I write in what can be guarantee wins and what are maybe wins. And if that easily adds up to the amount of wins that they need to get, with my rough brain estimations on how many wins they need to get their win expectations, then I buy in. If they aren't close, then I got to sell. And the Jazz, I just didn't expect them. I don't expect them to get their expected win percentage this upcoming 2 weeks. Lakers, they have the Celtics on this schedule. They have, I think, the Nuggets, if I remember correctly. They have a bunch. Yeah, they do have the Nuggets on here. So I'm just not a huge fan of the Lakers schedule. And you never know with what team you're going to get when it comes down to the Lakers. I got rid of my 10 Kings. They made me money, but that's just because they only played 5 games. They have a rougher schedule. I think they play the Nuggets twice. They play, I think, the Celtics once. They play a bunch of good teams this upcoming weeks. I sold half of my Bucks shares. They made money after losing money. But I just don't know if it's sustainable. I want to buy into the Bucks. I want that stock price to shoot up to $80, $90. But if it doesn't happen and they fall down to 60, I prefer not to be on that boat. Or at least only have a foot in the boat, the other on a life raft. And then I sold 2 Pistons. I know. I've been buying Pistons every week, but them winning 3 games.
Sam, why are you talking about this? You're acting like you told. Oh, it's the
no,
end of the
Hey, I'm pretty sure I've bought a Pistons share every single time, with the exception of last update where I finally started selling them. But here's the thing.
You don't need to explain yourself.
No, I know. I need to explain this
story. Just.
It's only 2 shares at the end of the day as well.
It's only 2 shares, and is it gonna 2 shares of the lowest stock? That's like $12. I can do that right now. I can physically buy those from you right now.
Take all 3. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
You're about to have a 10-minute segment over the Pistons stock, those 2 stocks.
It's just they doubled their win percentage, or they doubled their wins in these last 2 weeks. I don't think that's going to happen again. Peyton, I hope they do for you. But this de-incentivized. Here's the thing: they are already maybe halfway to their season wins. 12 might be the max that they're going to have all year. So they're already halfway there. I think I'll still keep some just in case. But yeah. But in terms of stocks that I bought, I really like the Cavs for 3 reasons. One, their expected win percentage at a .649 is fairly good. That means all they got to do is win 2/3 of their games this upcoming 2 weeks. I like that they are the highest stock price, and I like that they are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. I think they're sitting at 4th in the East, but they went 5-6 this last week, and I think the week before that they were 6 out of 7. So they've only had 2 losses in their last 13 games. So they are one of the hottest teams in the league. So I'm going to put money on that. I do like their schedule. I think that they could maybe slip up and not hit that expected win percentage. But I'm banking that they are going to be hot enough that they can get over that hump. I'm buying 10 more Nuggets. Again, I kind of like their schedule. They're facing some teams that they should beat. And typically with the Nuggets, I feel like they do win those games. Bought 6 Knicks just because I had something left over, kind of based off of the same reasoning that PT had. That it's a good team. The Randall injury kind of does sting, but luckily the stock price isn't too big. I am buying 5 Suns shares, and then I bought 1 Celtics share because why not have 1 share of the best team in the NBA?
Yeah, sounds like good. Some good strategy.
Yep.
The
So
the Cavs one I understand, but 50 shares is a lot.
it is, especially considering that they are the last time that I had more than 30 shares in a team, and they were the highest stock price. They fell. So
Yeah, you have to keep a
I'm
monitor on that
hoping.
one. Could pay off.
Yeah, could
Mobley's
be.
back.
Donovan just got announced as a All-Star. So
Yeah.
Why did we sleep on Booker?
What do you mean?
okay,
Man, never mind.
In
Forget
the
it.
well,
Forget-
we could talk about it real quick. You mean
Yeah.
in the prediction, right?
Yeah.
and the All-Stars. Yeah,
I don't think we were necessarily sleeping. I think we just thought that other guys deserved it more than him this year.
even
Like,
though he's
okay,
5th
like
in scoring,
if
which
we
is
look at the West this year, I think all the guys we put up there deserve to make it. I don't think that it was that like Booker didn't deserve to make it, but if we're putting in wins and we're putting in impact to a team, and I think other guys just, I mean, man, I think Sabonis, you could have said maybe deserved it more. I think you could have said Cat maybe deserved it more, or Gobert or whatever. Um, because if he is 5th in scoring, I believe he is 5th. That's what you said, right, Sam?
yep.
If you're 5th in scoring, but you're the 7 seed or you're the 8 seed, that doesn't hold as much weight as being the second best player on a number 1 seed. It just doesn't. So I think maybe we were looking at it from a different lens where I think when the head coaches were casting their votes for who they wanted to be reserves, I think they were thinking who is the actual who on a talent level deserves to be there. So even if the Suns were, a 10 seed or 11 seed, or the Lakers, they're a 10 seed. Those guys should deserve to make it because when they play, they are those kind of players, even if they're not getting the wins. Whereas I think we kind of took it from a different lens, and that's okay. I think most of our predictions were right, so it's just kind of how it goes sometimes.
Okay. I was just
Yeah.
checking because Stan told me someone got mad.
So just transitioning back to the stock market game, I guess, do any of you guys have anything to add?
I mean, this is kind of the point of the podcast where we can go into teams that we feel like we should talk about for one reason or another, right? So,
I think in terms of the stock market, one team to keep an eye on is actually the Hornets. I think the Hornets are a super interesting team because they have the least amount of wins in the NBA now.
No. Still the Pistons.
Still the Pistons.
Still the Pistons.
But
Hornets have 10 wins.
The Hornets have 10 wins, so they're.
But their expected win percentage is the lowest.
Yes, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so their expected win percentage is the lowest.
And they're getting
win a game yeah.
That seems real spicy. It might get interesting, but
I think it is. But as of right now, I'm the only one that has stocks in them. You gotta put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and that's what's really, really weird because you look at a team that the Hornets are at $26 a share with a 0.159, so that's a 16% win percentage or expected win percentage, and then there's the Knicks who are almost exactly $2 more per share, and their expected win percentage is 69%.
Yeah.
And if they win the same amount of games, let's say it's 4 out of 7, the Knicks are actually going to lose money, where the Hornets are going to gain dollars. And then next thing you know, they're going to be dollars ahead of the Knicks next week. So it's really funny how and it just shows, like, I mean, the Clippers, they're climbing, but they were the second lowest stock price at one time this year, almost the lowest.
Really?
Because they had such a bad start to their season, but then they started winning. But here's the thing: they were blowing teams out early on in the season, or they were losing games. Like that's how that first 20 games went for the Clippers. And then they started winning. They have the second most wins, maybe most wins now in the NBA since James Harden started playing. And they've climbed all the way up to, I think that's 22nd
3
now.
or 4.
Well, I 22nd in stock price.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, their expected win percentage is 71%. And I think they won every single game last week, and they only gained $3.41.
Do you know off the top of your head what seed they are?
I think they're still the 4 behind the
yeah.
Nuggets, Wolves, and Thunder.
It's pretty good though, to dig yourself out of that kind of hole early. And it's like, I understand what kind of player James Harden is. Trust me, I get it. I understand. But for one guy, it just, to me, I don't think it was just him. I think he was a big part of it. But I think with Paul George and Kawhi being healthy, and I know like Paul George has had a stretch or a couple of games where he's out or whatever, and I don't know what's really going on with Kawhi exactly. I think he's been healthy for most of the season. That's big. But I think the team is just meshing really well, and I think it goes beyond just James Harden's impact on the game. I think it's a good fit. Obviously, the bench is playing well. Westbrook is playing well in his role. So yeah, I think things are just going right for the Clippers right now. We'll have to see if they can carry it into the playoffs, but that's why I think, that's why I grabbed 5 shares of them, is I just think they're a very consistent, dependable team no matter who's playing, because they're meshing really well right now and the confidence is up. And so yeah, it is the James Harden effect, but at the same time, I think the Clippers are always just a pretty talented team you can depend on to be competitive in every game.
Yeah, it's just going to be a matter of time. And if he resigns with the Clippers, he's probably going to want out by November. So, because that's how it is with James Harden now.
Yeah, that's how it's been recently, But I believe, just before we go on to the next team, I believe he said he wanted to retire in LA, so because that's where he's from.
Stop.
So it would make sense. He did say that, I think. So
I don't believe him.
What's
not
holding
1,
him back?
not 2, not 3, not 4. That's what's gonna happen, Geigh.
Yeah.
Get ready. Get ready. Little brother.
Even if he doesn't win any titles with LA, I don't see a reason for him to leave to go to another team to keep title chasing. It just doesn't really make sense. He's gonna be, after this year, I believe he's gonna be 35. And so it just doesn't make a lot of sense to try to do that when you're at the back end of your career. You got all these accolades, and it's okay. Some guys just don't win the championships. It just doesn't work out. I think his chance was with Houston in 18, and he had a decent chance in Philly, but it just didn't line up. And obviously, same with Brooklyn. So, hey, sometimes you just can't get it all. But.
Right.
A good segue, I think, going into this is the downfall of the Warriors. Do you think that there's ever going to be a time in this stock market game that we're going to want to invest into the Warriors again? Or
no?
Because I believe we did in the beginning.
I think so.
I have a hard time believing that. I could maybe see it, but it seems like even when they're healthy, they're not a very good team. And Curry's doing everything he can do, and I just don't know if they're going to be worth the money.
I feel like Draymond and what are they at right now? The Warriors, they're at 0.46. Yeah, I could see them actually. I might invest them.
If it's low enough.
I feel like because Draymond has kind of figured it out. Kuminga has kind of figured it out.
But this could also be a team that is selling at the trade deadline.
I don't think they're selling. They're going to give it one last shot. You don't just sell when you have Steph Curry. That's just it. He's the greatest shooter of all time. It's just you're gonna just kind of
How many first round picks could you get for Steph Curry?
I don't think they're trading Steph Curry.
No, I'm kidding. That was just a joke. But I mean, if Wiggins is on the table for someone who needs, someone to be like, he'd probably be a good sixth man for a lot of, potentially contending teams. Klay Thompson, if he's not a starting shooting guard anymore, a team like.
Here's the thing. Steph Curry is going to have the slowest decline out of any star ever, including LeBron. His game is just built for that. Him and KD, they kind of have that same thing where they can blow an Achilles or something and they can come back the next year and still put up kind of roughly the same numbers because they don't rely on a lot of speed. They rely on playing a system that suits them and being able to really make the shots. I think we might have not even noticed if Steph lost a step. Heck, he might have already lost a step 3 years ago and we just haven't seen it. So the thing is, you're not selling at the trade deadline. You're seeing if you can retool around Steph for another shot because having Steph as your focal point in a 3-point shooting league at this time, that's a winning formula.
We get it, Gage.
So,
Steph Curry's a good player. We
so
get what you're saying.
Why would you do a fire sale?
Because I think you're missing the point, and you almost said it. You said they're gonna retool to try to go after a championship. I think you can retool and still sell off your assets and have a better team at the end. I think selling is probably the wrong term. I think retooling is probably a better term because if you think guys like Brandon Pod or Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody and maybe some other veterans are going to be enough, because as of right now, what is Klay really giving you? What is Wiggins giving you? 14 points per game on bad efficiency. I feel like you can get a guy like that for a couple first rounders, which they do have. They could easily do that. And not to mention, you don't want that Wiggins contract. You don't want that Draymond Green contract next year when you're trying to get guys on free agency. Because like you said, Steph Curry will have a slow decline and people are going to want to play with him, but you can't do that when you have him on the books already. So if you can get him off early, get some assets for him, kind of punt this year and get a high first draft pick. I mean, I think you can easily come back next year and have success, but you can't just keep your assets until they decline all the way until you don't get anything, or you get second round picks, or you don't get anything because people don't want to take on the contract at the end of the season because they can't use them.
I think we're spending too much time on this, but
I think probably too. I agree with you. I'm just saying I think you can retool and still have a good chance to win and get assets. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think retool around Steph, I guess, is what I agree with.
No, I'd retool around
Kuminga.
Yeah, sure, Kuminga. I almost said Wiseman, and then I was like, wait, he's not there. Bring him back just to rebuild around him.
Kuminga's played well though. But anyways, what's the next team we're talking about here before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, is there any team that you guys want to bring up?
No.
No?
Not
just
really.
The worst teams.
Not really, to be honest. I got one team that we can end with if you guys don't have any other teams that you guys want to talk about.
Don't say the Wizards. Don't get Gage started.
Negative. The Wizards, honestly, you could probably just delete their whole column because I don't think
nobody's investing.
Nobody's investing the whole year.
I think that's the last team that I don't think anyone's invested in the Wizards at all this year. I think 29 out of the 30 teams have been invested in.
That team is so bad. Everything about that team is so bad, and I don't. We can talk about this another time. We don't have to get into it because I don't want to talk about the Wizards. But before we wrap up, let's give a little bit of a talk about the Magic. And I will be the first to say, as of right now, Sam, you were right. You're right about the Magic declining steeply. And they haven't gone all the way down where they're gonna miss the playoffs or anything. They'll still probably make the playoffs. But they really have fallen off, and their price has fallen off as well with them, and it's just really hard, like we talked about on the All-Star prediction podcast. It's really hard to be a good team in the NBA or the East and not have at least one all-star guard, or not even an all-star guard, but a guard that you can depend on to give you 21 and 5 each game. And I really, really do feel like they're one of the worst backcourts that are in the playoff picture right now on both sides of the NBA. So obviously Banchero is going to do what he can do. Franz is going to do what he can do, but there's just kind of a certain cap to this team, and I don't think that they're going to be worth investing in at all throughout this next couple months. But they're going to be a team that can be good, but just not really worth the time or money.
Yeah. So first of all, Payton, thank you for the props. And I came up with the Orlando Magic effect idea and like kind of analysis last year when talking to Geigh, especially about the stock market, because there was like 3 consecutive years where the Orlando Magic was like a top 3 seed in the East and then ended up at highest an 8 seed or at lowest like a 12 seed. They just have a good start to the season, and then that's what it is. And to be honest, one of the biggest Orlando Magic effects this year was indeed the Magic. That wasn't like, I mean, it's kind of funny that it was them, but like wasn't necessarily going to have to be them. But they didn't really climb as high as most Orlando Magic effect teams had. You got to keep in mind one time last year, I think we were about like 18 to 19 games in. The Blazers and the Jazz were the 1-2 seeds in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first, like a quarter of the way through the season. And they ended up being the 11 and the 13 seed in the West, I think,
right.
by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Dame got hurt, Jazz were tanking, kind of not tanking, wacky stuff. But like that's just how the Orlando Magic effect can go. It's just early success that just won't be sustained.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Magic, I didn't say that I wanted to see it coming, but I said I wouldn't be surprised because I do like the Magic.
DeJounte Murray's going to the Magic. You didn't hear it from me though. Don't tell anyone.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I thought you just saw something.
Yeah, I know. I thought you did too. I just got a notification too. I was like,
I thought you were breaking news. It was
a crazy. So I remember doing on the trade machine. On the trade machine, I made a trade with the DeJounte Murray, and I refixed it. The first one is silly. I can't find the real one, but I ended up having DeJounte Murray get traded to the Magic.
I like that trade.
This was years, or this was like this off season.
I like that idea. I would just hope that they don't give up their whole future to do it.
They don't have to. That's the crazy part.
Not from what I've heard.
You have so many pieces on the Magic that players would like, teams would want. You could probably just give up Wendell Carter and call it good.
No, that's not getting DeJounte Murray done. No. From what I've heard around I'm not in the league obviously, but from what I've heard from reports, I'm hearing that they want multiple firsts and a young player. That's what I've heard. So either if they're not going to give up any picks, or if they're going to be late picks and it's like one, they're going to have to give up. They're not giving up Franz or Banchero. So what else do they have that's young and that attractive to not put any picks in? Like they really don't have anybody else,
Yeah.
Like I think realistically, this would be the package that would probably get it done. And I'm not even sure this does it because it's not a good fit for the Hawks. But it would be like 2 or 3 firsts that are top 5 protected. And then it would be Wendell Carter Jr. and it would be Jalen Suggs probably. That's what it would have to be. And I don't even think they really would want Jalen Suggs. I think he would just be a pretty decent fit next to Trae Young, as he's more defensively, defense oriented, and he's young on a young contract. But I just don't think that it really makes that much sense to give all that up for DeJounte. I like the fit though. But anyways, This is getting a little long.
Yeah. But yeah, was there any other teams, or was that good for now?
That's good for now.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and we'll talk about it because maybe Gage, maybe you did just break the news.
I did
but
break
we'll
the
talk.
news. I didn't maybe. I did.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. DeJounte Murray to the Magic.
I got D-Lo to the Magic.
D'Lo to the Magic.
Yeah.
Well, then who do I pick that's going to the Magic then? Zach LaVine to the Magic. Because why
All
not?
right. There you go.
Because why not?
So I guess next week we'll find out who went to the Magic, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if anybody does.
Or yeah, if anyone, who knows?
Yeah.
But once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. And don't forget to tune in to our Super Bowl live stream watch party on February 11th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube. I've been Sam Holcroft.
Geigh and Payton.
Geigh and Payton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.